What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we review the film Shallow Grave from 1987 from Vinegar Syndrome. Stay tuned. Alright, well, here we go with another Vinegar Syndrome title. You know, Vinegar Syndrome is very hit and miss with their releases, and honestly, a few of the ones I've reviewed recently have been pretty disappointing. Recently reviewing Devil Story and Girl School Screamers, ones like that that just were a big letdown for me. And I gotta say, Shallow Grave did not disappoint. Absolutely fantastic film. Loved this one so much. And yeah, this is what I like to see from Vinegar Syndrome. In fact, this is a title I feel any company could have released, any major company. And I'm glad Vinegar Syndrome were able to get their hands on this and give it a proper restoration and bring it to the masses, I guess. Because if they hadn't released it and been part of this subscription, it's probably one I wouldn't have seen, and I'm glad that I did. So let's talk about the story a little bit, and I'll try not to spoil too much for you guys on this one like I did Devil Story, because I really want you guys to watch this one. I'm trying not to give away more than like the trailer does. I am going to touch on a couple things that I really enjoyed about this, but I'm going to try my best not to spoil it enough to where you're not going to watch it. Alright, so Shallow Grave, for one, this is a little bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want this spoiled, skip ahead a couple minutes. And yeah, but I want to talk about the opening of this movie. The opening of this movie is very reminiscent of Psycho. And the reason behind that is, from the interviews, they wanted to make a Hitchcockian type film. So I'm going to say that they were trying to pay some homage to Hitchcock in this shower scene, the very famous, popular scene from Psycho, which is a practical joke on a fellow co-ed at the college. And yeah, it gives you plenty of nudity in this scene as well. So you have pretty much like opening scene nudity in this, and then you have some a little bit farther into the film, and then you have some more towards the end. So it's broken up into sections. I think there's like 3 scenes of nudity in here. So it doesn't disappoint completely on that. It's not overdone either. So that's a nice touch for an 80s horror film. So the rest of the story is 4 of the college girls lie and say they're going to go see one of their grandmothers or something like that in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So they're going to take a road trip and go see her. And, of course, that's not what they were going there for. They're just going to go have fun on the beach and everything like that. But on their way there, they get a flat tire. And, of course, they don't have a spare because the one girl says they wouldn't have had enough room for the luggage, even though the spare's underneath, and doesn't take... Anyways, who cares, right? You need a reason why they get stranded. So they get stranded there, and one of the girls has to go potty. So she tracks through the woods, and after she's done doing her business, she stumbles upon a couple having sex. This is where you get your next nude scene. And things kind of go awry after the sex is done and everything, and turns into an argument between the two because he hasn't left his wife. So he doesn't take kindly to her threats of telling his wife and saying that, I'm going to ruin your job as well and all this, and kills her. And the girl taking the pee witnesses this. And once the guy finds out that he's been seen doing this act, he starts to go after the girls. Now, the other thing to this is the guy is the sheriff of the small town that they're broke down in. So you have that going on as well, and that's one of the main points of this film is that he's the sheriff, he's the law, and he kind of will have power over the whole situation. So he starts taking them out one by one. I'm not going to say which ones go or anything like that first. You do also have a scene in here which I found. Now, the beginning of this movie, you're going to think it's not that great. There's some laughable moments. There's some questionable dialogue and acting and things like that, including the one girl constantly needing a cigarette because she's just so stressed out over the situation or whatever the case. And she's asking the dead woman for a cigarette.
Excuse me, but do you have a cigarette?
Well, we've got a flat tire up on the road, and believe it or not, we don't have a spare tire.
I'm sorry, but do you have a cigarette?
So, you see, we kind of need a little help. Well, we're kind of a little lost also. I mean, as far as how to get back to the road.
Yeah, so you can see that, I wasn't really feeling this one at first. There's also a point where they meet up with some guys at a restaurant and they promise to meet for breakfast the next day. The whole thing with the guys they meet seems like an afterthought or something. They don't even really mention it in the features or anything in the interviews. And they're not in it very much. They don't really do a whole lot. But they eventually decide to go see if they were broken down somewhere or something like that and eventually show up into the town. But I'm just going to skim through that really quick because it's really all kind of pointless. But once he starts taking them out one by one, a couple of them escape, only to be later on thrown into jail, into this small town's sheriff station, jail cells, and the girl can't quite remember what the guy looked like that witnessed this murder, but once she realizes, hey, this sheriff here, he's the one that did the killing, he realizes that she knows that it's him. And there's a time where, they're trying to convince the deputy that, hey, your boss, the sheriff of this town, he's the one that did these crimes and everything. He doesn't want to believe that, this is his idol. He looks up to him and doesn't want to admit that that's true. But there's things along the way that start to unravel where he starts to really question whether or not this is a true thing that these girls are telling him or not. Now, there is another scene in this movie that I really appreciated, and this is going to be another little tiny spoiler, so again, if you don't want anything spoiled, skip ahead for a minute or so. And I just want to touch on this scene where the sheriff is making it look like the woman that he killed is out of town. She packed her things up, she's fled town, and he stops to smell her perfume. I thought that was an incredible touch to this film because it shows that either he really did have feelings for this woman, he really did love her, he really didn't want to do what he did, and he's missing her already, or he's just really fucked up in the head and just wanted to smell it for whatever reason. But that's what I took from it, is he just took a moment and reflected on what he did, and that this woman that he really had feelings for is no longer, there. So I just wanted to point that scene out because I just, they didn't have to put that in there, but they did, and it really stood out to me, and it really meant something. Moving on from that, once the girls escape the jail cell, there's some intense scenes where you really feel for the girls, you really feel for the victims of this as the sheriff is trying to track them down. And you feel their fear. I don't know if I was just in the right state of mind for this film or what, but you could feel, them hiding and everything, and just feel that intensity of the scene itself. For a movie that's very low budget and everything, it's shot so well, and the storytelling in this, that's another thing that they talk about in the features on here, which we'll get to at the end of this review, is the story to this. It was the most important thing to the writer, to the director, and everything, was it had to have a good story, and it really does. And again, you really feel for these girls, and you put yourself in their situation, you put yourself in the sheriff's situation, and it's just, it's an amazing film. It really is. Once it gets past that first 20 minutes or so and everything, and it turns into the movie that it really is, it's just, I couldn't stop watching this thing. I normally take a break like halfway through movies or something, and I didn't even do that because I wanted to see what happened next. I had to know what was around the corner and what he was going to do next. There's times where he's got it's hunting season during this as well. So he has the hunters looking for the escaped girls, things like that. He has this whole town at his disposal and convinces everyone that they're the killers. They're the ones that killed this woman, not him. And, it's just, it's great storytelling all around, and it's very well acted. Again, once it gets going, again, some cheesy lines at the beginning of it and everything, but that's as to be expected for an 80s horror film. But wow, I was just very, very impressed with this overall. The ending is a little bit frustrating, I will say that, but I don't know. I think a cool ending, and I don't really do this, but I think a cool ending would be to take the two guys that they met and have them like capture these girls at the end, and it ended up being like these kids are the sheriff's sons or something, and it had this like whole other twist to it. That would have been kind of cool. But that's just my own wheels turning and thinking of something, because they didn't do anything in this movie. They really didn't. But yeah, it's a movie you have to watch to believe how good this fucking movie is. I actually gave this 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. If you guys want to read my written review as well, you're more than welcome to. It's not as in-depth as this, but man, this is a definite buy. If you guys buy one movie from Vinegar Syndrome, this is it right here. I can't recommend this enough. And if you guys are new to Vinegar Syndrome and you're thinking about making a purchase, buy this one. Don't wait for a sale. Just get it now. The slip may not be available by then. And I tried to play it without the slip, even in the same room, and the damn thing wouldn't even play. So you have to have the slip cover to play these. Anyways, I digress. Let's move on to the features. I'll show you guys the inside art as well. This took place in Medley, Georgia, was the small town. Don't turn your back on the law. The road might lead you to a shallow grave. As far as features on here, you do get newly scanned and restored in 2K from the 35mm vault elements. It looked pretty good. At the beginning of it, it wasn't too great video quality, but it does get a little bit better as the movie goes on, and the sound was excellent as well. Now you get 2 commentary tracks on here from the director Richard Stiles, and a commentary track with The Hysteria Continues. You also get Looking for Magic, an interview with director Richard Stiles, which runs 14 minutes and 42 seconds. During this interview, I want to say it was supposed to be an alien film, is what he says, like right at the beginning of this interview. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's what he says. I don't know how that would have been, but anyways, they made this movie for $250,000, which is impressive as hell. Even for 87, $250,000 isn't much money for the production value of this film. It's just absolutely incredible. He's still working today after 30 plus years in the business. He was supposed to only be the executive producer on this, but ended up being the director. And he wanted of course, like I mentioned before, a Hitchcock type film. He wanted that feel to it, that kind of just suspense and everything, as opposed to a straight slasher. And originally they were trying to cast Don Johnson. They worked on him with a film before this, and unfortunately his career with Miami Vice took off and everything, so they weren't able to get him for this. But I think the main actor in this did a fantastic job as the sheriff. I'm assuming that's the role they were trying to cast him for. Anyways, it talks about building the sets, which isn't something they normally do on a lower budget, but they did build the jail, and they built the apartment thing at the beginning of the movie for the sorority house area for the college. Talks about, again, that the story is the most important thing. You know, in a great story, the movie's going to hold up as long as you have that great story. So, fantastic interview with the director. Really enjoyed that. And then you have on here visual storyteller, an interview with writer-producer George Edward Fernandez. Runs 13 minutes and 30 seconds. He was the original writer of Shallow Grave. Lots of background noise in this interview. It was like really windy, and you hear the trees and everything. Kind of hard to make out what he's saying sometimes, but still a great interview. He wanted it to be originally a film about a biracial couple traveling through the South and getting attacked by locals and things like that. But of course, ended up being the movie that we have now. Instead, he wrote the script in 2 days, and he was having marital problems at the time, so he decided not to direct and bring on Richard Stiles to direct instead. He talks about his career after the movie and going on to teaching and things like that as well, and still writes. He said he writes like every day. He's got all these scripts, all this stuff. Even if he's only writing an email or something, he's writing something every day. It's just embedded in him to keep writing no matter what. He does mention that during the time of filming this movie, the actors were on strike. The SAG actors were on strike, and they were trying to keep them from making this movie as they were out on the road and things like that. They would drive by and honk their horns and just make all kinds of loud noises and everything because they didn't think that they were supposed to be making this movie, but they weren't part of that. They weren't a SAG union. The actors weren't part of any of that, so they were free to do whatever they wanted. Very, very interesting interview, though. Both interviews are fantastic on this. And, of course, you get your reverse cover art, your English subtitles. This is a region-free release as well, so you guys overseas, you guys can grab this up and enjoy the hell out of this like I did as well. And it says 1984 on the back, but that's not right. It's 87. It might have been filmed in 84 maybe and released in 87. Because it even says 87 on the bottom here. But 84 in the little box. Huh, interesting. Runs 89 minutes. It's in the 185:1 aspect ratio with the mono sound DTS HD master audio. And, yeah, fantastic film, guys. Very, very high recommend. I am super impressed with this. Now, this is one that I had a feeling it was going to be a better actual film than Blades, but I was more excited for Blades because I'm going in order for least excited to most excited for during these reviews for the September package. But yeah, it really exceeded my expectations. I had a feeling it was going to be a good film, but not this damn good. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, grab this shit. So that's going to do it for this review, guys. Again, I try to keep these around 20 minutes or less, so let me know what you guys think of Shallow Grave. If you've seen it, if you've not seen it, are you looking forward to? I know there's some other good reviews out there for this. People are speaking very highly of this. I've tried to stay away from those reviews, but I have watched a couple, and people seem to really enjoy this. So now that I've done mine, I'm going to go back and watch some other people and hear their thoughts on this as well. So, and just embrace this community, guys. Check out everyone's reviews for all of these boutique label movies and support these guys and what they do. People like myself, we do this for fun, but we do this also to connect with you guys and hear your guys' feedback. And we really appreciate the support. So, all right, that's going to do it for this. And as always, peace, love, happiness to all of you. I will catch you all later. Bye.
Say, where are you ladies headed for, anyway?
We're going to Fort Lauderdale.
No shit! I was there once, and boy, that there water sure was nice.
Yeah, and if we don't get there soon, it'll be too dark to see that there water.
A fine squirrel steak, ready to cook.
Well, you take care and happy hunting.
Before we get into our morning, it's time for breakfast prayer with our own Reverend Billy Joe Mather.
Oh.